The Ultimate Christmas Experience, written by Tuesday Savage, produced by Trouble Twins Publishing. Chapter 1. The fluorescent backstage lights flickered overhead, casting a pale glow on the polished sheen of sweat and oil-covered competitors. The Emberlake Fitness Championship was in full swing, a symphony of clanking weights, shouted affirmations, and the unmistakable smell of competition oil filling the air. Hero Joiglee stood near the supply table, his trademark tank top and satin workout shorts revealing a sculpted physique that most envied. In his hand was a half-empty bottle of bronzing oil, a vital tool of his trade as essential as the carton of protein bars under the table. He leaned against the wall, observing the action. Athletes in various states of undress fussed over their tans, arguing over which protein shake brand offered the best pump. There was nothing new here. It was just the same routine he had been a part of for years. Once, the energy in this space had thrilled him. Now, it felt old but comfortable, like a favorite pair of pajamas. He couldn't imagine doing anything else, even if the new had worn off. Hero's gaze drifted to the stage. Through the thick velvet curtain, he glimpsed the main event, a top-level, gold-medal competitor flexing beneath the glaring spotlights, every muscle on display like a meticulously carved statue. The applause from the audience was deafening. Hero felt the pang of something he couldn't quite name. It wasn't jealousy or regret. It was emptiness. The routine of same old was getting to him. "Joiglee, you've got 3 minutes," a voice snapped him out of his thoughts. It was Trevor, the competition coordinator, motioning for him to help the next athlete oil up. Hero nodded absent-mindedly and grabbed a fresh bottle of oil. His reflection in the mirror caught his attention. His square jawline, perpetual tan, and piercing green eyes looked back at him like a stranger. The man in the mirror was a facade, a living, breathing poster boy for the fitness industry. Beneath the polished exterior, Hero wondered if there was more to him than muscle and routine. Later that evening, Hero sat at a table in Chez Quirky, the city's trendiest fusion restaurant. Candles flickered softly, casting warm light on the rose petals scattered across the tablecloth. Issa LaRue, his girlfriend of 4 years, sat across from him, radiant in her emerald green dress. She toyed with her glass of Merlot, a distant expression on her face. Hero's hand brushed against the velvet box in his jacket pocket. Tonight was the night. He had rehearsed the speech over and over, imagining Isa's joyful surprise when he slid the diamond ring onto her finger. But as he opened his mouth to begin, Isa spoke first. "Hero, we need to talk." The words hit him like a dumbbell to the chest. Her tone was calm, but carried the weight of inevitability. Hero swallowed hard, his throat suddenly dry. Those words never led to anything good. Okay, Hero said, a sinking feeling in the pit of his stomach. "I've been thinking a lot about us," Isa continued, setting her glass down. She put her arms on the table and laced her fingers together and looked him in the eye. "And I feel like we're heading in different directions." "Different directions?" Hero repeated, the words tasting foreign in his mouth. "What do you mean?" Isa sighed, her gaze dropping to her hands. She fiddled with her impeccable manicure. "Hero, I need more than what we have. You're stuck in this world. The gym, the competitions, the oil. It's all so superficial. I need someone with vision, someone who's thinking ahead." Hero frowned, confusion etched across his face. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I've met someone," Isa admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "His name is Chad McSnazzy. He's a hologram designer. He creates these incredible digital logos for businesses, and he's opening up possibilities I never even dreamed of." Chad McSnazzy. The name alone felt like an insult. Hero clenched his jaw, his fingers tightening around the edge of the table. "Are you serious, Isa? A hologram designer?" Hero stared. "That doesn't even sound real." "It's not just about his job," Isa replied, her tone defensive. "It's about the way he sees the future. He's ambitious, creative, exciting. He's everything I've been missing." "Missing," he whispered. The velvet box in Hero's pocket felt heavier than ever. He let his hand drop, the words he had prepared crumbling like ash. "And what about us?" he asked, his voice low. "What about everything we've built together?" Isa shook her head, tears brimming in her eyes. She brushed them away, careful not to mess up her makeup, and put her hands over Hero's, giving them a little shake. Hero stared down at their hands in numb horror. "I'll always care about you, Hero." But I can't keep living in this shallow world. You've got so much potential, but you're wasting it. Shallow. The word cut deep, leaving Hiro stunned into silence. Isa stood, smoothing her dress as she avoided his gaze. I'm sorry, she said softly. Goodbye, Hiro. And just like that, she was gone. Hiro sat alone, the weight of her words crushing him. The diamond ring in his pocket seemed ridiculous now, a symbol of a life that had suddenly slipped out of reach. For the first time, he felt truly adrift. The restaurant buzzed around him, oblivious to the storm raging within. Hiro stared at the empty chair across from him, Isa's parting words echoing in his mind. You're stuck in this shallow world. She'd said a lot of other things, but that's what kept ringing in his head. You're stuck in this shallow world. Back at his apartment, Hiro collapsed onto the couch, the glow of the city's neon lights filtering through the window. Hiro had a small, ugly apartment, but it had a great view of the city skyline. A bottle of oil sat on the coffee table, its reflective surface mocking him. Was this all his life amounted to? A perfect tan, rippling muscles, and a career built on appearances? The words that Vince, the hammersmith, had told him when he retired from the fitness performance world came unbidden to his mind. Life doesn't end when the stage lights dim, kid. Sometimes it's the start of something better. Hiro stared out the window at the Ember Lake skyline, a faint spark of something stirring within him. Change. It loomed on the horizon, unfamiliar and terrifying. Chapter 2. The morning after Isa's departure arrived quietly, with gray skies that mirrored Hiro's mood. He dragged himself to the Ember Lake Fitness Championship, despite the gnawing ache in his chest. His professional routine had always been his refuge, but today it felt suffocating. Backstage, the usual chaos reigned. Bodybuilders adjusted their posing trunks, sprayed tans glistened under the harsh lights, and arguments over protein brands reached new decibels. Hiro tried to focus on his job, oiling up competitors for their moment in the spotlight, but Isa's words echoed relentlessly in his mind. You're stuck in this shallow world. Joiglee, move it! We've got 10 more guys in line. Trevor barked, snapping Hiro back to the present. He fumbled with the bottle, his grip slick from the oil on his hands. I'm on it, Hiro muttered, forcing himself into autopilot. He grabbed a bottle of oil and approached the next competitor, a towering man with a rhinestone-encrusted fitness show shorts. Just as Hiro tilted the bottle to pour the oil, a sudden, sharp pang of distraction shot through him. His thoughts wandered to Isa, to Chad McSnazzy, to the velvet box he had tossed on his kitchen counter when he got home from what should have been a happy evening the night before. The oil spilled, a glistening torrent cascading onto the rhinestone-encrusted posing trunks of his client. What the? The competitor's shout cut through the din. A collective gasp rippled through the room. All eyes turned to Hiro and the now oil-drenched athlete. Do you have any idea how much these cost? The competitor bellowed, waving his ruined trunks. This is custom work, Joiglee. You're a disaster today. Hiro's face flushed crimson. Apologies tumbled from his lips, but the damage was done. Snickers and murmurs filled the backstage area. For the first time, Hiro felt like an outsider in the world he had once dominated. Trevor stormed over, his face a mask of frustration. What's going on with you, Hiro? You're off your game? If you can't handle this, maybe it's time to reconsider your career. The words stung more than Hiro expected. He nodded mutely and retreated to the corner of the room, the bottle of oil still clutched in his hand. He leaned against the wall, the humiliation washing over him in waves. The competitors avoided him. As the show went on around him, all he could hear in his mind was Isa's words about wasting his shallow life. He slammed the bottle of oil on the table, grabbed his stuff, and left without a backward glance. He walked the city streets, lost in his miserable swirling thoughts until he found himself standing in front of a Copacabana-themed bar. He blinked and looked around, orienting himself. He knew this bar. It had to be fate that had brought him here. He went inside. Rough day, kid? A gravelly voice greeted him as he entered, breaking through his thoughts. Hiro looked up to see Vince, the hammersmith, his former mentor and a retired legend in the fitness world, standing behind the bar, polishing a glass. Vince's gray hair and weathered face were a stark contrast to the shiny, bronze perfection that had surrounded Hiro only a short while ago. You could say that, Hero admitted, managing a weak smile. Vince chuckled, handing Hero a protein shake. Spill oil on anyone important? Custom rhinestone trunks, Hero replied, shaking his head. It's a disaster. He took a drink of the shake. I think I got fired. Is that all? There are other gyms in town. Trevor's isn't the only one. Vince told him. I can put a word in for you, if you want. Thanks, but that's not the only thing. Hero said glumly, but cheered that Vince was looking out for him. Oh? Vince asked, moving on to polishing a new glass. No, Hero sighed. Issa dumped me. I had it all planned out. I took her to Chez Quirky, had the ring and everything, and bam. Before I could say a word, she told me she's dumping me for some Chad McSnazzy guy who's a big flash hologram advertising executive or something. Doesn't even sound like a real job if you ask me. Vince leaned against the bar across from him, his gaze thoughtful. You know, I've been where you are. There comes a time when life stops fitting, like an old pair of lifting gloves. Maybe it's time to start thinking about what comes next. Hero sighed. What comes next? This is all I know. Doesn't have to be, Vince said. When I left this world, I thought it was the end. But it was just the beginning. I opened my Copacabana club, and for the first time, I started living. Hero frowned. But how did you know what to do? How did you just change? You start by listening to that little voice inside you, Vince said, tapping his chest. What's it saying? Don't think about it. Just say the first thing that comes to mind. Hero hesitated, then admitted, Christmas. I've always loved Christmas. The decorations, the lights, the joy, parades, tree festivals. It's the one thing that feels real. Vince's face lit up with a knowing smile. There you go. Maybe it's time to chase that feeling, kid. There's a whole world out there beyond the stage. Ever hear of a town called Aurora Quest? No, Hero said. Curiosity piqued. It's where I grew up, Vince said, his voice tinged with nostalgia. Quaint little place, obsessed with Christmas. If you're looking for a fresh start, you might find it there. Vince shrugged. And if not, at least it'll get you moving in a new direction. Hero mulled over Vince's words. By the time he finished his protein shake, he knew one thing for certain. His current life was no longer enough. That evening, Hero tossed the remaining oil bottles and competition tools into a box marked for donation. He Googled Aurora Quest and stared at images of snow-dusted streets and twinkling holiday lights. Something stirred within him, a faint flicker of hope. Vince's words echoed in his mind. Sometimes the end is just the beginning. Hero stared at the city skyline one last time before closing the blinds and going to bed. Tomorrow, he would make plans to leave Ember Lake behind and take his first steps toward a new life. Chapter 3. The gym smelled of sweat, disinfectant, and faintly of vanilla protein powder, the familiar cocktail of Hero's life. He stepped through the doors of Titan's Forge, the fitness mecca of Ember Lake, intent on one last workout before his big move. He figured a good sweat would clear his head and remind him why he had loved this place once. He was still unsure about leaving Ember Lake. Last night, after his chat with Vince, it had seemed the thing to do. Today, leaving every familiar thing behind was a daunting prospect. He navigated through the sea of machines, weights clanging rhythmically like a metallic heartbeat, keeping to himself. He felt embarrassed and out of sorts after the spill yesterday and walking away from the competition when Trevor needed him. Every corner held a memory. Hours spent perfecting his form, pushing his limits, coaching clients. Yet today, the place felt oddly foreign, as though it belonged to someone else now. Hero made his way to the free weights, sliding a pair of earbuds into his ears. Just as he picked up a dumbbell, a peal of laughter reached him. It was melodic and familiar. It immediately set his teeth on edge and tore his heart to shreds. He turned toward the sound and felt his stomach drop. Issa stood by the cable machine, radiant in her neon workout gear, her hair pulled into a sleek ponytail. She was talking animatedly with a man who could only be Chad McSnazzy. Chad was exactly what Hero had imagined, and somehow worse. His fluorescent green sneakers matched his hoodie, which bore an LED logo that pulsed with his heartbeat. His haircut was asymmetrical, a sharp fade on one side and a swooping wave on the other, and his glasses were the kind that made him look as if he were perpetually live-streaming his thoughts. He looked slick, and not from body oil. He was the kind of slick that only came from having an oily personality. Hero watched as Chad leaned in, demonstrating something with exaggerated flair. Isa laughed again, playfully swatting his arm. The dumbbell in Hiro's hand felt suddenly absurdly heavy. He set it down with a clank, pulling out his earbuds as he debated whether to retreat or confront. Before he could decide, Isa glanced his way and froze. "Hiro," she said, her smile faltering. Her voice carried just enough surprise to twist the knife. Chad turned, curiosity lighting up his face. "Oh, you must be Hiro," he said, stepping forward with an outstretched hand. His handshake was enthusiastic, the kind Hiro imagined a hologram designer would perfect for networking events. "And you must be Chad McSnazzy," Hiro said, unable to keep the bite out of his tone. Chad either didn't notice or chose to ignore it. "Guilty as charged," he said with a booming laugh. "Isa's told me all about you. You're in the fitness industry, right? Oiling competitors and all that jazz?" Hiro's jaw tightened. "That's right. And you're in holograms? That's creative." Chad's grin widened. "It's the future, my friend. Fitness is fine, but think about holograms and gym marketing, personalized logos, virtual coaching. It's not about now, it's about what's next." Isa shifted uncomfortably, her gaze flickering between the two men. "Chad, maybe we should." But Chad was already in full pitch mode. "You know, Hiro, if you're ever looking to pivot your career, I'd be happy to give you some pointers. A guy with your look, you could be the face of something big. Just imagine. The fitness hologram revolution." Hiro stared at him, the absurdity of the moment crashing over him. Chad McSnazzy, with his blinking hoodie and future-obsessed grin and glasses that live-streamed his every move, embodied everything Isa had left him for. Hiro realized with startling clarity that she hadn't just moved on from their relationship. She had moved on from the life they had shared, the values they once held dear. "Thanks, but I think I'll pass," Hiro said evenly. He turned to Isa, forcing himself to meet her eyes. "Good luck, Isa. I mean that." Isa blinked, her lips parting as though she wanted to say something, but no words came. For a brief moment, her polished exterior cracked, and Hiro thought he saw a flicker of regret. Chad clapped him on the back. "That's the spirit. Always keep looking forward. Here's my card if you want to be a hologram model." Hiro didn't respond. He walked away, the echo of Chad's voice and Isa's silence following him like shadows. Later, back in his apartment, Hiro sat on the floor surrounded by boxes, his fists clenched against his knees. The encounter replayed in his mind, the smugness in Chad's voice, Isa's conflicted expression. He felt a surge of anger, not just at them, but at himself for holding on to a life that no longer fit. The decision, once hazy and fraught with doubt, crystallized in that moment. He wasn't just leaving Ember Lake to escape heartbreak or humiliation. He was leaving because he deserved more. He deserved a life with purpose, joy, and a future he could shape with his own hands. Hiro stood, grabbed his phone, and typed out a simple message to Vince. "I'm heading to Aurora Quest. Thanks for everything." As he hit send, he felt a weight lift. The journey ahead was uncertain, but it was his. And for the first time in years, Hiro felt ready to take the leap. The next morning, after spending a frenzied night packing and making arrangements to get rid of stuff he didn't need, renting storage and telling his landlord he wouldn't need his apartment anymore, Hiro stood in the living room of his now bare apartment, staring at the boxes stacked by the door. The space felt colder, emptier without the familiar clutter of his fitness life. Oiling bottles, posters of gold belt winners, resistance bands, a weight rack, and stacks of gym-branded tank tops. The decision to donate most of his gear had been surprisingly easy, but each item he packed away solidified the reality of his departure. Aurora Quest. The name lingered in his mind, accompanied by images of snow-covered rooftops and glowing Christmas lights he had seen online. For the first time in years, Hiro felt a glimmer of excitement about the unknown. The drive out of Ember Lake was a mix of melancholy and anticipation. Hiro's car was packed with essentials, a duffel bag of clothes, a few sentimental keepsakes, and his favorite blender. Just because he was leaving the city behind didn't mean he wasn't going to need some stuff to start his new life. The city skyline faded in his rearview mirror, replaced by rolling hills and frosted pine trees. Snow began to fall as Hiro drove. The fat, fluffy white flakes dusted the road ahead, transforming the landscape into something out of a Christmas postcard. The sight stirred something deep within him, a sense of wonder he hadn't felt in years. He made a pit stop at a roadside diner. Inside, the warmth of a crackling fireplace greeted him, along with the smell of cinnamon and fresh coffee. A cheerful waitress in a Santa hat poured him a cup. "Heading somewhere special?" she asked, setting a slice of apple pie in front of him. "Aurora Quest," Hero replied. The waitress's face lit up. "Oh, you'll love it there. Folks are real friendly, and the town goes all out for Christmas. Best gingerbread competition in the area, too." Hero chuckled. "Good to know. I'm looking for a fresh start." "Well, if you're looking for Christmas spirit, you've picked the right place," she said with a wink before heading off to another table. Hero arrived in Aurora Quest just as the sun dipped below the horizon. Twinkling lights adorned every house, casting a soft glow over the snow-covered streets. Wreaths hung on lampposts, and the faint sound of holiday music drifted through the air. It was as if he had driven straight into a Hallmark card. He pulled up in front of the real estate office, its windows decorated with red bows and strings of popcorn. Inside, a jolly man with a round belly and a thick white beard greeted him. "Hi, Hero Joiglee," Hero said, returning the man's exuberant handshake. "Welcome to Aurora Quest. Name's Gerald Tinnan. You must be the fella Vince told me about," the man said, extending a hand. Hero shook it, surprised. "Vince mentioned me?" "Sure did. He's an old friend from kindergarten. Said you were looking for a fresh start. Got just the place for you." Gerald grabbed a set of keys and motioned for Hero to follow. The house was a small, two-story fixer-upper on the edge of town. Its paint was peeling, and the porch sagged. Hero could see the potential, though. The house had charm, a large bay window, perfect for a Christmas tree, and a cozy stone fireplace. Even from the driver's seat, stopped at the end of the driveway, the place felt homey. It sat at the end of a quiet street, framed by towering pines that swayed gently in the winter breeze. Its weathered exterior, a once vibrant blue, now faded to a dull gray, hinted at years of neglect. Icicles hung from the eaves like crystal daggers, and the porch creaked under the weight of snow. Despite its flaws, there was something undeniably endearing about the little house, as though it had been waiting for someone to bring it back to life. Hero drove up to the house, parked his car behind Gerald Tinnan's on the gravel driveway, and stepped out, the crunch of snow beneath his boots breaking the serene silence. His breath clouded in the crisp air as he approached the house. Gerald Tinnan, the jovial real estate agent, stood by the front door, his thick scarf wrapped tightly around his neck and the keys jingling in his hand. "Well, here she is," Gerald said with a grin, gesturing broadly. "Needs a bit of love, sure, but she's got good bones, built in the 1920s, solid craftsmanship back then." Hero took in the peeling paint, the uneven shutters, and the sagging porch railing. It was a far cry from the sleek apartments of Emberlake, but there was something about the place that tugged at him. He stepped onto the porch, the wood groaning slightly under his weight. The snow covering the banister sparkled under the late afternoon sun, and Hero could already picture it adorned with strands of glowing lights and a thick garland tied with red bows. "It's got charm," Hero said, running his gloved hand along the weathered wood. He turned to Gerald. "What's inside?" Gerald chuckled. "Come on, let's take a look." He unlocked the door and pushed it open, revealing a small foyer with scuffed hardwood floors and faded floral wallpaper. The air inside was cool and carried a faint, musty smell, but it wasn't unpleasant. Hero stepped in, the sound of his boots echoing in the empty space. Gerald scurried over to the thermostat on the wall and turned the heat up. The living room stretched out to the left, dominated by a large stone fireplace. The mantel was cracked but sturdy, and Hero could already imagine stockings hanging from it and flames crackling in the hearth. Across the room, a large bay window overlooked the snow-dusted front yard. He could practically see a Christmas tree standing there, its lights twinkling warmly against the glass. "The fireplace is original," Gerald said, following Hero's gaze. "Still works, though you'll need to get it inspected before lighting any fires, just to be on the safe side. And that bay window? Best in the neighborhood if you ask me." Hero nodded, his mind racing with possibilities. The house wasn't perfect, but it felt like a blank canvas, an opportunity to create something entirely his own. Gerald led him through the rest of the house. The kitchen was small but functional, with dated appliances and chipped tiles that spoke of decades past. Upstairs, there were 2 bedrooms, both modestly sized, with slanted ceilings that added to their quaintness. A third room on the ground floor, little more than a large closet, had a large window and could serve as an office or storage space. "It's not much," Gerald said as they descended the narrow staircase, "but with a little elbow grease, you could turn this place into a real gem." Hero stopped in the middle of the living room, turning slowly to take it all in. The imperfections didn't deter him, they intrigued him. The house felt like a reflection of himself, worn, a little broken but full of untapped potential. "What do you think?" Gerald asked, jingling the keys. Hero stepped back onto the porch, the cold biting at his cheeks as he looked out over the snowy street. The house seemed to fit perfectly into its surroundings, as though it belonged here, just as he hoped he would someday. He imagined lights twined around the porch railing, a wreath on the door, and the sound of carolers in the distance. "I'll take it," Hero said, his voice firm with newfound determination. Gerald beamed, clapping Hero on the shoulder. "Good choice, son. This place is gonna suit you just fine." They went back inside to the kitchen, where Gerald laid out the paperwork for Hero to sign. As Gerald handed him the keys, Hero felt a surge of excitement. The house wasn't just a place to live. It was a symbol of his fresh start, a foundation for the life he wanted to build. For the first time in months, Hero felt like he was exactly where he needed to be. Chapter 5. Hero stepped over the threshold of his new home, his arms weighed down with the last box from his car. The air inside was cold, the kind of chill that crept into your bones and made every breath visible. Gerald had turned the furnace up when they'd first arrived, but with the door left open while he moved in, it didn't stand a chance. Hero hoped that now the door was closed, the house would warm up. He set the box down in the front hall and took a deep breath, surveying the living room. The faint, musty scent he had noticed earlier seemed stronger now, mingling with the metallic tang of old pipes and the faint scent of wood smoke that clung to the stone fireplace from years past. "This is it," he murmured to himself, feeling a little overwhelmed by his speedy decision to buy the house. He went into the kitchen to unpack his blender, a Megamix 9000, to make the place feel more like home. The industrial-sized blender barely fit on the counter. He frowned and jiggled it, testing the stability. The rubber feet held it firmly, but if he ever wanted to put anything else on the counter, he'd either have to move the blender or remodel the kitchen. Satisfied that the kitchen was set up, he figured the next order of business was to check the basics a little more thoroughly than he had during the quick walk around with Gerald. Hero climbed the narrow staircase to the second floor, his boots echoing on the creaky wood. Upstairs were the 2 small bedrooms and the bathroom between them. Each bedroom had its own set of quirks: slanted ceilings, drafty windows, and faint water stains on the walls and ceilings. What caught his attention most, though, was the bitter chill. After a good look, he saw that the upstairs had no heat vents, leaving it icy and uninhabitable at the moment. Hero exhaled a cloud of frustration, deciding that his first night would have to be spent downstairs where the heater could at least take the edge off the cold. When he reached the bathroom, he pushed open the door, flipping the light switch. A single, low-wattage bulb flickered reluctantly to life, casting an anemic glow over the room. The porcelain toilet sat in one corner, its tank lid slightly askew. Hero pressed the flush lever, and the groan of protesting pipes filled the room, followed by the sound of water reluctantly swirling down. At least the water pipes weren't frozen. He bumped into the toilet and almost fell over. The toilet wobbled dangerously as he flailed and tried to regain his balance. If he fell into the space between the toilet and the tub, he'd be wedged there with no way to call for help. As he remembered, he'd left his phone on the kitchen counter. Recovering from his near-death experience, Hero tentatively reached out a hand and checked the toilet. It was definitely loose. The floor sagged around it too. He sighed and began a mental list of things to take care of right away. Leaving the toilet for now, he turned the faucet on at the sink, and a sputtering stream of water poured out, red with rust. The color made Hero's stomach twist. It reminded him of a failed protein shake experiment from years ago. He twisted the tap off quickly and sighed, leaning against the doorframe. "Well, you've got your work cut out for you," he said aloud, shaking his head. He turned the light out and went down the narrow steps. Downstairs, he checked the small powder room. The toilet and taps were in better condition and usable. He wiggled the toilet vigorously. It was seated solidly. Satisfied he wouldn't be risking his life if he used it, he went to finish unpacking the few things he'd brought with him. Hiro began unpacking the essentials from his boxes. He adjusted his blender on the counter so he could stack his few dishes in the kitchen cabinets, and took his blankets into the living room. The fireplace stood as the focal point of the room, a silent guardian of the space. But Gerald's warning about getting the chimney inspected stopped him from attempting a fire. Instead, he piled his blankets in front of it, plugged in his alarm clock, a lava lamp his mom had given him for Christmas years ago, and surveyed his temporary setup. Used to the busyness of the city outside his apartment, the house at the end of the dead-end street was eerily quiet. Every creak of the floorboards or distant groan of the walls sounded amplified. The winter wind howled through the cracked, dried-up sealant around the windows, and Hiro swore he could feel the chill sneaking in through every crack. But even with the house's imperfections, he couldn't bring himself to feel disappointed. This place, broken as it was, belonged to him. He lay down on the makeshift bed of blankets, pulling a thicker one over himself as he stared at the shadowy ceiling. The moonlight streaming through the bay window painted faint patterns across the walls, and he found himself smiling despite the chill. The creaks and groans of the house, far from unsettling him, were almost comforting. It was as though the house were alive, settling in alongside him. Hiro's thoughts drifted to Vince and his advice to get out there and live his dream, not just follow it around. The words stayed with him, wrapping around him like a second blanket. He fell asleep to the house's nighttime noises, his mind already racing with ideas for what it could become. The next morning, Hiro woke to the soft light of dawn filtering through the bay window. He rubbed his stiff back, wincing slightly as he pushed himself upright, still wrapped in blankets. The hard floor was unforgiving, but the sight outside made him forget his aches and pains. Snow had fallen overnight, blanketing the yard in a pristine layer of white. Icicles hung from the eaves like glittering jewels, and the trees swayed gently in the morning breeze. It was breathtaking. For a moment, Hiro just sat there, watching the peaceful scene, cozy in his nest of blankets. Then his stomach growled, pulling him out of his reverie. He was starving, but he didn't want to leave the coziness of his blankets to find food. He huffed out a breath, checking for frost. He was pleasantly surprised when there was no plume from his lips. He stuck an experimental barefoot out of the warm blankets as a sacrifice. It was warm. The furnace had worked hard through the night, and the living room at least felt livable. Feeling brave, he flung the blankets off and stood up to stretch. Then went into the kitchen to see what he had to eat. He rummaged through a box until he found a protein bar, tearing it open as he mentally planned his day. Today he would call his old landlord and have his furniture sent from storage. But before that, there were repairs to tackle. The toilet, the rusty water, the drafty windows. It was a daunting list, but Hiro felt oddly excited. He wasn't just fixing a house, he was building a home. As he stood and stretched, Hiro felt the stiffness in his back fade, replaced by a growing sense of purpose. This place was his blank slate, and he was ready to transform it. For the first time in what felt like forever, Hiro felt like he was exactly where he needed to be. Chapter 6. Wanting something more filling than protein bars, Hiro decided he'd check out the little pizza place he'd spotted on the corner of the main street when he'd driven past to the realtor's office the day before. Hiro's first step into Vesper's Pizza Parlor was met with a rush of warmth, both literal and figurative. The scent of baking dough and bubbling cheese filled the air, mingling with the faint tang of tomato sauce and garlic. He stomped snow from his boots and surveyed the room. The mismatched chairs and tables gave the place a quirky charm, and the walls, lined with photographs of grinning families, decorated trees, and snow-filled adventures, radiated a sense of community. Behind the counter stood a wiry man with a mop of gray hair that seemed to have a life of its own. He wiped his hands on his apron and grinned as Hiro approached. "You must be the guy Gerald told me about," the man said. his voice carrying the same energy as the room. "Welcome to Aurora Quest. I'm Vesper." "Hero Joiglee," Hero replied, extending a hand. Vesper reached over the high counter and grabbed it enthusiastically. "Hero, that's a name. Bet you hear that a lot, huh?" Without waiting for an answer, Vesper continued. "You're the guy who bought the old Wainwright place, aren't ya? Whole town's been buzzing about it all morning. That house has been sitting empty for years. Good to see someone finally giving it some love." Hero smiled, feeling the weight of expectations settle on his shoulders. "I'll do my best," he said, the words more of a promise to himself than to Vesper. "Good on ya," Vesper said, slapping the counter. "So what can I get you?" "Best pizza in town. Heck, best pizza in the whole county if you ask me." "Don't listen to anyone who says otherwise. They're liars." Hero chuckled. "I'll take whatever's your specialty." "Excellent choice," Vesper declared, disappearing into the kitchen with a flourish. As Hero waited, the lunch rush started as locals began trickling in, stomping snow from their boots and greeting one another with familiarity. It wasn't long before Vesper's booming voice introduced Hero to the entire room. "Hey everyone, this is Hero. He's the new owner of the Wainwright house." All eyes turned to Hero, and he offered an awkward wave. One by one, people approached to introduce themselves. An elderly couple, the Wicks, reminisced about sledding on the hill behind the Wainwright house when they were children. A cheerful woman named Carla, carrying a basket of knitted scarves, talked about the town's annual tree lighting ceremony. "And don't forget the gingerbread competition," Carla added, her eyes twinkling. "Best in the county. You'll have to enter. Everyone does." "I don't know why though when Mrs. Tinnan wins every year," Hero heard someone complain good-naturedly in the back of the crowd. Hero held up his hands, laughing. "I'm not much of a baker, but I'll cheer from the sidelines." "Nonsense," Carla said with a wink. "You'll be a natural." The room burst into easy laughter, and Hero found himself swept up in their enthusiasm. These people weren't just friendly, they were a community, woven together by shared traditions and a love of the holiday season. The kitchen doors swung open, and Vesper emerged carrying a pizza pan, steam rising from the perfectly browned crust. "One Vesper special for the new guy," he announced triumphantly. Eagerly, Hero stepped forward to take the pizza, but just as Vesper got close to the counter and the waiting pizza box, Vesper tripped. The sudden jolt sent the pizza flipping in mid-air, landing squarely on the wall with a wet smack, right in front of Hero. The pizza slid down the wall, leaving a gooey, cheesy mess to settle in a sad heap on the floor. For a moment, the room fell silent. Hero stood frozen, staring at the gooey mess of melted cheese and tomato sauce that was now plastered across the wall and floor. Then Vesper broke the silence. "Sorry." The room erupted into laughter, and Hero couldn't help but join in. "Guess it wasn't done yet," he said with a shrug, peeling the pizza off the floor and holding it up like a trophy. "It didn't stick." "Don't you worry," Vesper said, grabbing a garbage can and rushing to Hero's side. "This one's on the house, and I'll get you a fresh one. You've got my solemn vow. This next one will land in the box." "Deal," Hero said, grinning as he dropped the ruined pizza in the garbage can. The mishap seemed to break the ice completely. As Hero helped Vesper clean up, the locals offered playful jabs and good-natured advice about navigating life in Aurora Quest. By the time Vesper presented him with a new pizza, this one making it safely to the table, Hero didn't feel like such an outsider. Chapter 7. The hardware store was tucked into a corner of Aurora Quest's main street, its sign painted in cheerful red and green with snowflakes etched into the lettering. Hero pushed the door open, a small bell chiming overhead. The warmth inside was a welcome contrast to the biting cold outside. Shelves stretched in every direction, piled high with tools, paint cans, pipes, and an eclectic collection of Christmas decorations that seemed to spill out into every corner. Hero grabbed a cart and began wandering the aisles. His list wasn't long: a plunger for the clogged toilet downstairs, an entirely new toilet for the upstairs, a bucket of nails for the broken banister on the sagging porch, and a few other basic supplies. As he turned a corner, his gaze landed on an entire aisle dedicated to Christmas lights, ornaments, and garlands. For a moment, he paused, his eyes tracing the glittering rows of red and gold baubles. "Let's not get ahead of ourselves," he muttered, forcing himself to focus. Basket in hand, Hero made his way to the counter, where a sprightly woman sat, knitting what appeared to be a red and white scarf. Her glasses perched on the tip of her nose, and her silver hair was pulled into a loose bun. She looked up as he approached, her sharp eyes taking in the plunger, nails, and other items he placed on the counter. "Well, if it isn't the new owner of the Wainwright house," she said with a grin, her voice tinged with amusement. Hero blinked in surprise. "How'd you know?" Mrs. Tinnan tapped her knitting needles together with a wink. "News travels fast in Aurora Quest. Gerald told me all about you, said you've got big plans for that old place." Hero chuckled, rubbing the back of his neck. "Big might be a stretch. Right now, I'm just trying to get the toilet working." Mrs. Tinnan laughed, a warm, musical sound. "Ah, the joys of home ownership. The Wainwright place is a charmer, and she'll test your patience, but you'll fall in love with her in no time. You'll see." Hero smiled. "I'll take all the advice I can get." Mrs. Tinnan leaned forward, resting her elbows on the counter. "Well, here's some for free. Don't let the house fool you. It's not just about fixing what's broken. It's about bringing joy to it." Hero raised an eyebrow. "Joy? I'm not sure clogged pipes and a broken toilet are all that joyful." Mrs. Tinnan waved a hand, dismissing his skepticism. "A house becomes a home when it makes you happy and makes others happy too. It's about the memories you create there, the laughter that fills its walls, the warmth that spreads to everyone who steps inside." Hero frowned, caught off guard by the unexpected turn in the conversation. "That's an interesting way to look at it." Mrs. Tinnan smiled knowingly, her knitting needles clicking rhythmically. "You'll understand soon enough. It's not just about the nails and the plunger, my dear. It's about the heart you put into it. That house chose you, you know." Hero chuckled awkwardly, unsure of how to respond. "Well, I guess I'd better make it proud then." "That's the spirit," Mrs. Tinnan said, her grin widening. She rang up his purchases and packed them neatly into a bag. "And don't hesitate to come back if you need anything, or if you just need some advice." Hero nodded, slinging the bag over his shoulder. "Thanks, Mrs. Tinnan. I'll keep that in mind." As he stepped outside, the crisp air hitting his face, her words lingered in his mind. "It's not just about fixing what's broken, it's about bringing joy to it." He glanced back at the shop, its window display filled with twinkling lights and hand-painted wooden ornaments. For the first time since arriving in Aurora Quest, Hero felt a spark of something he couldn't quite name. Maybe Mrs. Tinnan was right? Maybe it wasn't just about fixing a house, it was about creating something that mattered. With a renewed sense of purpose, Hero headed home, his mind brimming with ideas he couldn't yet put into words. All he knew was that something had shifted, and for the first time in a long time, it felt like he was on the right path. Chapter 8. Back at the Wainwright house, now the Joiglee house, that afternoon, Hero decided it was the perfect time to tackle the plumbing in the upstairs bathroom, determined to conquer the toilet installation. Armed with his new plunger, a set of wrenches, and sheer determination, he picked up the replacement toilet to carry it up the narrow staircase. Immediately, he noticed a crucial flaw in his plans. With the heavy toilet still in its protective cardboard box, he approached the stairs and discovered the box was not going to fit. He barked his knuckles between the box and the wall, nearly dropping the toilet. Cursing, he backed up and tried a different approach. This time, he added some speed. He figured if he got some momentum going, the toilet would go up the stairs. Once again, things did not go as planned. The box stopped dead, knocking the wind from Hero with a loud oof. He lost his grip and fell backwards to the floor. Instinctively, he threw his arms up and turned his head to protect himself from the falling toilet. After a moment, he cracked an eye open, then dropped his arms and sat up. He stared flabbergasted at the cardboard box wedged firmly in the stairway. He scooched out of the way just in case, then got to his feet. He went to the box and touched it cautiously. It didn't budge. Feeling a little more confident that it wasn't going to fall on him at the slightest touch, he got a grip on the box and tried to tug it loose. It wouldn't move. Setting his feet, he tugged harder. It was stuck and there was no way it was coming out. What he needed, he realized, was some oil. Slick the sides up and the box would unstick and he'd be able to push it up the stairs. He groaned. He'd gotten rid of all his body oil when he decided to quit fitness and move out here. He didn't even have any cooking oil. All he had was a stick of butter and no way to melt it. This wasn't going to work. Maybe he should have called a plumber in the first place. Hiro slumped against the box, feeling defeated by his very first attempt at a home improvement project. He was startled to feel something move inside the box. He jiggled the box again. It happened again. He was worried now. Had he broken his new toilet when he jammed it into the narrow staircase? Concerned, he tore a small hole in the box and peeked inside. It was hard to see, but it looked like the toilet was still in one piece. He heaved a sigh of relief, then felt a surge of excitement as realization washed over him. To be certain, he looked through the peephole again. He'd been right. Only the box was stuck. Hiro went to the kitchen to find a sharp knife. He returned to the stuck toilet and carefully carved the box away. He soon had the stairs clear and was back in the business of Operation Toilet Replacement. Chapter 9. Hiro stood in the upstairs bathroom, staring at the new toilet like it was a complex puzzle. The instructions spread across the floor looked more like ancient hieroglyphics than helpful guidance. Step 1. Remove old toilet, he read aloud, then glanced at the lopsided yellowed porcelain throne. Seemed straightforward enough. He checked the instructions again, selected a wrench that most closely matched the blurry, poor-quality photocopied picture, and got to work. As Hiro attempted to disconnect the old toilet, he realized the nuts had rusted in place. He grunted, applying more elbow grease, but the wrench slipped, and he stumbled backward, landing on his rear with a thud. The plunger stuck to the side of the tub, bobbed up and down like a mocking spectator before whacking him. "Seriously?" Hiro exclaimed, scrambling to his feet. He pulled the plunger off the side of the tub and put it behind the door. He honestly wasn't even sure how it had attached itself to the tub in the first place. Undeterred, he attacked the nuts again, this time loosening one. Feeling encouraged, Hiro added a little torque. The bolt broke off and shot off in an unexpected direction, rolling under the nearby cabinet. With a groan of dismay, Hiro crawled after it. He had been hoping to avoid replacing the bolts, but he was glad Mrs. Tinnen had made him get some. Hiro heard her voice in his head as he crawled on the floor, looking for the bolt. "You can always bring them back if you don't need them. But get them now. It'll save you a trip when you're busy." Hiro smiled. She was a smart lady. Might as well be a plumber's assistant. Or a contortionist. He muttered, finally retrieving the errant nut with a bit of help from a broom. 30 minutes later, Hiro was straddling the old toilet, wrench in hand, face red from exertion as he attempted to loosen the second rusty bolt. By this point, he'd removed the tank and taken it outside to give himself more room to work. He was a big guy, and the space behind the toilet had not been made for guys his size in mind, and he was beginning to realize why plumbers always showed up with a kid. "Come on, you stubborn." The wrench slipped. He smashed his hand on the wall and he fell forward, barely catching himself before face-planting into the bathroom wall. Right, new approach. He positioned himself differently, bracing one foot against the wall for leverage. With a grunt and a sharp twist, the bolt finally gave way, sending him sprawling backward into the empty bathtub, getting tangled in the old shower curtain. "I'm okay," he announced to no one, his voice echoing off the tile while he flailed, trying to extricate himself from the tub. Once free of the tub, he took a break. Getting that second bolt loose was an occasion to celebrate, and he went down to the kitchen to eat the rest of his pizza. Fortified, he went back upstairs to tackle the second phase of this nightmare. It was time to get the toilet out of the bathroom. After wrestling the old toilet free, it was stuck to the floor thanks to the corrosion from the old bolts. Hiro discovered a horror show of decades-old wax ring and corroded metal. "Oh, that's just wrong." He gagged slightly, wishing he had called a plumber. He checked the time and sighed. It was too late now. Every sane person in town was asleep by now, and this was hardly an emergency. With the old toilet finally disconnected, Hiro proudly lifted out of the way, only to realize he'd forgotten to turn off the water supply. A tiny geyser erupted, soaking his shirt and jeans. He dropped the toilet and fumbled, soaking wet, for the shutoff valve and closed it. He stared morosely around the drenched bathroom. Home renovation was a lot harder in real life than they made it look on TV, he thought, getting up to find his towels. dry, and with fresh clothes. Hiro tackled the next part, the new toilet installation. It proved equally challenging. He'd managed to get the new wax ring in place and was attempting to lower the toilet onto the flange when his phone rang, startling him. The heavy toilet slipped in his grasp, landing on his foot and slightly askew. No, no, no. He scrambled to adjust it, but his other foot slipped on the instruction manual lying on the floor beside the tub, sending him sliding across the bathroom floor. The toilet rocked precariously, but miraculously, it stayed upright. Hiro braced himself on the walls and recovered from his splits. Standing on his feet again, he checked his phone. He stared at the number. His heart stuttered. Why was Isa calling him? Now of all times? While he'd been trying to avoid death by porcelain and learning new gymnastic moves, the phone had stopped ringing. Sweat dripping down his face, Hiro sank onto the edge of the bathtub, figuring out the next step. Should he call her back? Why had she called? Especially this late? Was she in trouble? Before he could decide what to do, the icon showing that someone left a message flashed. He could just listen to the message and go from there. He stopped with his thumb over the call button. Did he even want to hear her voice? She had made it clear she didn't want to hear his anymore. But she had called in the middle of the night. It had to mean something, right? Before he could change his mind, he called to hear the message. Chapter 10. Hiro sat on the edge of the tub, phone pressed to his ear as the voicemail began to play. The laughter was unmistakable. Isa's light, melodic giggle that used to feel like sunlight breaking through clouds. Now it grated against his nerves, sharpening the ache he'd worked so hard to dull. A man's voice followed, smooth and confident, laced with a hint of smugness. It was Chad McSnazzy. Of course, it was Chad. Hey baby, why don't you tell me again how that guy used to oil people up for a living? Chad's voice dripped with mockery, his tone exaggerated like a bad sitcom actor. What was his name again? Hercules? No, wait. Hero, right? Like he's some kind of Greek god. Isa's laughter rose again, this time tinged with a playfulness that Hiro recognized all too well. Oh, stop, she said, though she didn't sound like she wanted him to stop at all. He's not that bad. Not that bad? Chad replied, incredulous. Come on, Isa. The guy spent years slathering up bodybuilders like a Thanksgiving turkey. That's got to be the weirdest job ever. What's he doing now? Selling protein shakes door to door. Isa chuckled. No, he moved out to some tiny town, Aurora something, said he wanted to start fresh or whatever. Honestly, it's kind of sad. I mean, he always thought he was going to do something big, you know? Big? Chad interjected, his laughter booming. The guy's biggest accomplishment was rubbing tanning oil on some dude in a rhinestone thong. Oh man. You really traded up with me, huh? There was a kissy sound that turned Hiro's stomach. Isa giggled again. Well, I can't argue with that. The sound of glasses clinking and the muffled din of partygoers filtered through the message. Hiro's grip on the phone tightened, his jaw clenched so hard it ached. Then Isa's voice shifted slightly. Still light, but now with a hint of curiosity. Oh wait, is that my phone? Hiro's stomach sank. There was a brief rustling sound followed by Isa's unmistakable laugh. Oh my god, did I just pocket dial Hiro? Chad's voice joined hers, full of amusement. Well, if you did, maybe he'll finally get the hint. Seriously though, who cares? Let him hear. Maybe he'll realize it's time to move on. Isa's laughter faded slightly, but her next words cut deeper than any of Chad's jokes. Yeah, I guess you're right. He's not part of my life anymore. No point worrying about it. The message ended abruptly with a beep, leaving Hiro in stunned silence. Hiro stared at the phone, the words ringing in his ears long after the message had stopped. The mocking, the laughter, Isa's casual indifference, it all settled like a heavy weight in his chest. He felt a swirl of emotions, anger, hurt, humiliation. But beneath it all, there was a strange, growing clarity. This was the Isa he had loved. This was the woman who had once claimed to believe in him, who had shared his dreams, his plans, his life. She had moved on, and now it was painfully obvious just how far apart they had drifted. He stared at the phone for a while before reaching out an angry finger to erase the message. Next, he swiped into his contacts, and after blocking Isa's number, he erased her contact information before he could have any doubts about what he was doing. He turned his phone off and let out a breath. It was done. Hiro stood slowly, setting the phone down on the bathroom counter. He looked around at the mess, the slightly askew toilet, the scattered tools, the damp instructions. The scene felt oddly symbolic, as though the universe had chosen this exact moment to remind him that he was in the middle of rebuilding not just a house, but his entire life. He rubbed his face to clear his thoughts and picked up the wrench. "Guess I'll just have to prove them wrong," he muttered, his voice steady with resolve. For the first time, Hero didn't feel the sting of Issa's words. Instead, they fueled him. Chad could laugh all he wanted, and Issa could dismiss him as much as she liked. Hero wasn't stuck in the past anymore. He had something they couldn't touch, a future he was building with his own hands. And as Hero bent down to adjust the toilet, he found himself smiling. He wasn't just fixing a bathroom. He was taking the next step forward, one bolt at a time. Chapter 11. Tighten the bolts evenly to prevent leaking. He squinted at the paper. Now you tell me. 3 hours, 2 YouTube tutorials, and 1 frantic search on the internet for instructions to replace the ones that had been ruined in the flood later. Hero stood triumphantly before his newly installed toilet. He turned the water supply back on, holding his breath as he flushed it for the first time. The toilet made a sound like a drowning elephant, shuddered violently, but ultimately worked perfectly. Huh! Hero pumped his fist in the air. Take that, plumbing! He was about to leave when he noticed the leftover parts on the floor. A rubber washer and what looked like an important-looking metal ring. "That's probably fine," he muttered, quickly sweeping them into the empty box. They always pack spare parts, just in case. Hero finally finished with the installation, stepped back to admire his handiwork. A sense of accomplishment washed over him. It had taken him far, far longer than he'd anticipated, but he now had a working toilet he wasn't afraid to sit on anymore. That had to count for something. As he headed downstairs, Mrs. Tinnan's words about bringing joy echoed in his mind again. He glanced back at the bathroom. Well, a working toilet definitely brings joy. That counts, right? His thoughts drifted back to the bay window, the town's Christmas traditions, and the spark of inspiration that had flared earlier returned. What if I could bring joy not just to this house, but to the whole town? He abandoned the bathroom, now a scene of minor chaos, and grabbed a notebook from his unpacked belongings. Sitting cross-legged on his bed of blankets on the floor in the living room, Hero began to sketch and make notes and mind maps. Ideas flowed, unchecked and unbridled. Aurora Quest's Winter Wonderland. Transform the town square into a festive hub. Light up the night. Organize a house decorating contest, culminating in a magical nighttime display. Christmas market. Invite local artisans to showcase their wares in a cozy snow globe-like atmosphere. Jingle and Mingle. Host a town-wide caroling event, complete with hot cocoa, a dance, and fire pits. Then the words, Hero Joiglee's Ultimate Christmas Experience, scrawled themselves across the top of the page, as if written by an invisible, festive hand. Hero's eyes shone with excitement, and he knew without a doubt this was it. Chapter 12. Hero woke to the pale light of dawn filtering through the bay window. The blanket he'd tossed over himself during his midnight brainstorm was now tangled around his legs, and his notebook lay open beside him, where he had dropped it when he fell asleep. He rubbed his eyes and glanced at his scribbled ideas. The bold words, Hero Joiglee's Ultimate Christmas Experience, stared back at him. A surge of excitement coursed through him. This was it. The spark, the purpose he had been searching for. This wasn't about proving Issa or Chad or anyone else wrong anymore. It was about proving to himself that he could build something meaningful, not just for his new home, but for the entire town and his future. Hero's fingers flew across the keyboard, a flurry of research fueling his newfound passion for event planning. The living room, once a temporary sleeping quarters, had transformed into a makeshift office. Blankets and pillows now framed a workspace cluttered with notebooks, scribbled ideas, protein bar wrappers, and empty coffee cups. Hero Joiglee's Ultimate Christmas Experience glowed on the screen, the website's inaugural draft taking shape. As the hours blurred, so did Hero's doubts. Who needed experience in event management when you had enthusiasm and a willingness to learn? He was going to create magic experiences no one would ever forget. That's all that really mattered. With the website launched and flyers printed, Hiro set out to blanket the town with his promotional materials. His first stop was the farm store. With its bustling bulletin board and packed parking lot, it seemed an ideal starting point. He pinned up his colorful flyer, complete with carefully cut tabs with his contact information, and stepped back to admire the professional-looking result. Hiro Joiglee's ultimate Christmas experience, transforming Aurora Quest into a winter wonderland. Customized events for all occasions, unforgettable experiences guaranteed. Contact Hiro Joiglee for a holiday to remember. As he straightened the flyer for the third time, a voice interrupted his tweaking. "Excuse me, young man, are you going to stand there and block the doorway all day?" Hiro turned to face a kindly-eyed elderly lady, wearing a winter hat, giant leather mittens, and green, insulated rubber boots. Her ensemble screamed warm and practical, not fashionable, Hiro thought, as he stepped away from the board and took a good look at her. "Ah, hello. Sorry, I'm Hiro Joiglee," Hiro said, moving out of her way. She didn't go through the door despite her question, but instead moved closer to the bulletin board to inspect his flyer. "This you?" she asked, cocking her head to look at him. "Yes, and I've just launched an event planning business, specializing in holiday experiences." He handed her a flyer, launching into his well-rehearsed pitch. "Imagine a Christmas wonderland, right here in Aurora Quest. I'll handle every detail, ensuring an unforgettable experience for you and your loved ones." The lady's eyes sparkled as she listened, her gaze never wavering from Hiro's face. "I'm Myrtle Barris, owner of the Snake Moon Hill Orchard. We're celebrating our 150th anniversary this year, and I've been searching for someone to make it a day to remember." Hiro's heart skipped a beat. "That sounds like an incredible opportunity. I'd be honored to help you celebrate this milestone." Myrtle's smile expanded, and she extended a hand. "Can you come out to the orchard later today to go over things? I want an event that will make our guests feel like they're walking through a winter wonderland. Can you deliver that for me?" Hiro beamed, shaking her hand firmly. "Absolutely, Mrs. Barris. I promise you, no one will ever forget the Snake Moon Hill Orchard's 150th anniversary. It'll be an experience of a lifetime." As they parted ways, Hiro felt an exhilarating rush. His first client, and it was a monumental occasion. The pressure was on, but he was ready to shine. The inaugural event of Hiro Joiglee's ultimate Christmas experience would be nothing short of spectacular. With a spring in his step, Hiro hurried to finish putting up flyers around town and get back to his makeshift office to prepare for his meeting at the orchard, already envisioning the enchanting atmosphere he would create for Myrtle and the Snake Moon Hill Orchard. His doubts and the mocking voices of his past all faded into the background as Hiro embarked on his quest to make his new venture a success. Chapter 13. Hiro's boots crunched on the gravel driveway as he approached the Snake Moon Hill Orchard. The rustic sign, adorned with a hand-painted pear, a snake, and the full moon, creaked in the gentle breeze. Myrtle Barris was standing in front of the barn, bundled in her practical winter attire. She greeted him with a warm smile. "Right on time, Hiro. Come on in and let's get down to business." Myrtle led him to a cozy, wood-paneled office, heated with an electric fireplace, the scent of old pine boards and fresh pears wafting through the air. As they sat by the crackling fake fireplace, Myrtle unfolded a yellowed map of the orchard, pointing out key areas. "I envision a winter wonderland, Hiro. Twinkling lights, snowflakes gently falling, and the aroma of hot cocoa wafting through the air." Hiro's eyes sparkled as he scribbled notes. "I see it, Mrs. Barris. We'll make it happen. Well, maybe not the snowflakes. I can't control the weather. For the food, I'll be contacting a local caterer to provide a delectable pear-inspired menu, including Snake Moon Hill's pear cider, hot chocolate, and fondue." Myrtle's face lit up. "That's perfect. My great-grandpappy planted the first pear tree on this land 150 years ago. It's still standing, and I'd love to feature it in the celebration." Hiro's curiosity piqued. He asked, "May I see it? It could be a fantastic focal point for the event." As they strolled through the snow-dusted orchard, Myrtle shared stories of her ancestors' struggles and triumphs. The ancient pear tree, its winter bare, gnarled branches stretching toward the sky, stood proudly at the orchard's heart. "This is it," Hiro breathed, his mind racing with ideas. "We'll create a stunning backdrop around this tree. Twinkling lights, a custom-built stage over there for live music, and a special ceremony to honor your family's legacy. Myrtle's eyes misted, and she placed a gentle hand on the tree's trunk. That would mean the world to me, Hero. You're not just planning an event. You're helping me preserve my family's history. As the sun set, casting blue winter shadows over the orchard, Hero felt a sense of pride and purpose. He was no longer just a former oil boy. He was on his way to his future and living his dream. Chapter 14. Hero stood at his desk, pen in hand, staring at the blank paper in front of him. He was about to write a letter to Isa, a gesture he never thought he'd make. Yet, as he began to write, the words flowed effortlessly. Dear Isa, I'm not sure if you'll ever read this, but I needed to say thank you. Your decision to move on forced me to confront the emptiness I'd been feeling for so long. I've found a new sense of purpose in Aurora Quest, and I couldn't be more grateful. I wish you and Chad all the best. You deserve each other. As for me, I've discovered that I don't need a six-pack or a spotlight to shine. I just need to be myself. I'm excited to see what the future holds, and I hope you are too. Warm regards, Hero. With the letter sealed and ready to be sent, Hero felt an overwhelming sense of closure. He took a deep breath, letting the weight of his past mistakes lift off his shoulders. Tomorrow was a new day, a chance to prove to himself that he was more than just a pretty face. The night before the Snake Moon Hill orchard party, Hero stood on his sagging porch, now adorned with twinkling Christmas lights. The sky was painted with hues of sapphire and amethyst, and the air was alive with the magic of his first snowfall in his new life in Aurora Quest. Fat, fluffy flakes danced around him, casting a mesmerizing spell. For the first time in years, Hero felt truly at home. The porch creaked beneath his feet as he drank a steaming mug of hot chocolate and watched the snow fall. He closed his eyes, letting the cold crystals kiss his face. As the snow continued to fall, shrouding the town in a layer of white, Hero's heart swelled with anticipation. The stage was set, the players were in position, and the curtain was about to rise on the most unforgettable night in Aurora Quest's history. His inaugural event at Snake Moon Hill Orchard and his 12 Days of Christmas-themed anniversary celebration. He'd found a bird wrangler named Roy and gotten a partridge to sit in the pear tree. It was the perfect way to kick off his new life, and he couldn't wait until tomorrow to see it all come together. If you enjoyed this story, please consider buying a copy, like, subscribe, and check the playlist for the next episode. Thanks for listening. Tuesday Savage.